I'm sure there are many who would say that this procedure of the premiers or any first minister or prime minister referring these actions to see if they're constitutional to the courts is a procedure which is very difficult to do. It's not. I have done it as Premier of Newfoundland. When I was Premier of Newfoundland, we introduced an act which was called the Water Reversion Act, which was going to break new ground and do new things, which was quite substantially different than in the past. And so the first thing that came to my mind and came to our Cabinet's mind was, before we impose something like this, should we really find out, because it's so different, whether it's constitutional or not? So all we had to do was to, through our Department of Justice, create the question, is this act, called the Water Reversion Act, passed by the legislature of Newfoundland, constitutional? And we referred it to the appeal court, they heard it, then we referred it to the Supreme Court of Canada, and they heard it, and we've got a final determination of whether this act was constitutional or not. So it's easy to do, it's available, and it's something is there for this very purpose. When you're doing monumental change to our society, which may be infringing upon rights and freedoms and breaking new ground, isn't it reasonable and fair to say, let's check this out first before it's imposed, to see whether we're inside that very sacred document called the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The other great characteristic of this, besides its simplicity, and what gives it some of its simplicity, is the fact that it's outside the normal court proceedings because it's a reference by a government. So it goes directly to their appeal court rather than to the other courts first. And number two, it's not an adversarial kind of situation where I'm suing you, you're suing me. It is one government asking their highest courts for a decision under whether this is constitutional or not. It is not your normal way of doing things. That's what makes it so magical.